Pence testifying against Trump is going to be a very big hit for Trump.
Fact of former President Trump's third criminal indictment has not only underscored divisions in our country between the parties, but it appears that Republicans are also divided as well, with some Trump supporters still believing he did nothing wrong, others not so sure. And in that light, we begin today with former Vice President Mike Pence, a man once seen as extremely loyal to Trump, that is, until they lost the 2020 election. At which point, Pence says Trump pressured him to try to overturn the election and in their favor. We spoke with Pence in New
There's audio recording where Trump tells Pence that if Pence doesn't claim that the election was a fraud, Trump won't be friends with Pence anymore, and that's why there's the falling out.
New Hampshire yesterday.
President Trump was wrong. He was wrong then, he's wrong now. I had no right to overturn the election. And more and more Americans are coming up to me every day and recognizing that. And for my part, I'm running for president in part because, frankly, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution that day. But I chose the Constitution, and I always will.
So I want to ask you about characterizations that have been made by those who speak on behalf of the president's legal team. They've said this week that all they asked of you, that is to say the president, was to delay the proceedings to allow states to conduct an audit. Is that a truthful representation of what you were asked to do, Mr. Vice President?
Major, that's not what happened. From sometime in the middle of December, the president began to be told that I had some authority to reject or return votes back to the states. I had no such authority. I stand by the facts as they occurred. I mean, it ebbed and flowed between different legal theories, but at the end of the day, I know we did our duty. I know we kept our oath, but I truly do believe that no one who ever puts himself over the Constitution should ever be president of the United States.
Mr. Vice President, if this case comes to trial, would you be a witness against the president?
People can be confident. We'll obey the law. We'll respond to the call of the law if it comes, and we'll just tell the truth. Look, I've been telling this story over the last 2 years, but I must tell you over the last week, it seems that more and more Americans have been coming up to me and just expressing a word of appreciation for what, by God's grace, that we did that day.
To be clear, Mr. Vice President, you do not regard this indictment as the political persecution of the former president?
Well, I've been very concerned about politicization at the Justice Department for years. I've been deeply troubled to see the double standard between the way that the Justice Department has gone after the president and responded even with other Republicans and pro-life Americans, and the way they seem to take no interest in getting to the bottom of allegations of corruption around President Biden's family. So I have deep concern about that. But look, I don't want to prejudge this indictment. I don't know whether the government has the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to support this case. The president's entitled to the presumption of innocence.
Mr. Vice President, tell me about these notes that the special prosecutor referred to in the indictment. Were those all the notes you took on all of your conversations with the former president at that time? Were you a note taker throughout your time as vice president? Did you hand them off to staff? Were these things you kept yourself? Tell me about the note process.
Well, I can tell you, Major, I have some limitations of what I can talk about relative to the grand jury, but there was from time to time, particularly at important moments, I had a practice of scribbling a note or two on my calendar just to memorialize it and remember it, and I did that in this case. I generally didn't make a practice of taking notes in meetings over the 4-year period of time, but given the momentous events that were unfolding, I did take a few notes to remind myself of what had been said. And, from very early on, the very first time the president raised the issue with me that he was being told that I had the right to overturn the election, to reject or return votes, I told him I knew I had no such authority. Look, I'm a student of American history. I knew the founders of this country would never have given any one person the right to choose what electoral college votes to accept and which ones to reject. I was very consistent with the president about that, and my recollections all reflect that. But, at the end of the day, the president continued to hold to that view. but I knew what my duty was. And as I said, by God's grace, we did our duty on that fateful day.